Hello and welcome to HCB, where today it is the review of the Week 21 games in the Premier League. Hope you all had a very happy new year. Welcome to a new decade. New life can be brought into your teams now that the previous decade's over. Trust me, if the first game is anything to go by the decade, I know that is very true for my club, but we'll get to that game. We'll get to that game. We start off with Brighton versus Chelsea, which ended Brighton 1, Chelsea 1. So close to getting this prediction right. In the goals from Jahan Bakash and Azpilicueta. Jeez, imagine Paul Merson saying both of those names during his broadcast. Cancel each other out, and both teams end up with a point. I was so, as I said, so close to getting this one right, in the sense that I knew Brighton were playing decent football at the moment and Chelsea were very 50-50. So I thought, despite Chelsea's good away record, Brighton could come there and shock Chelsea. And they come there. They were at the Amex. They didn't go anywhere. Chelsea could come to Brighton and Brighton could shock them. I was so close. I got the rough idea. They did get a point. I was so close. But I mean, to be fair, it deserved to be a draw because at the end of the day, even the stats were very even. Both sides had 16 shots. Both sides had 5 shots on target. In possession, Chelsea 52-48%. It was a very even game, which you'd expect. You'd expect Brighton to go and play sides like Chelsea and have a decent amount of possession. I know they still had less, but they are going to these. They're playing these sides and they're fighting them tooth and nail. Which is an expression I've never used before until this very video. I mean, the main talking point is obviously Jahan Bakash's goal, which was spectacular. Jahan Bakash's goals are like buses. You don't get any for the first year and a half he's at the club, but then 2 come along at once. That is literally the timetable of some buses and trains as well. If you go on trains, some people go on trains, some people go on buses. What was I talking about? Yes! Brighton, Chelsea. But yeah, I mean, it was a spectacular overhead kick goal. It was slightly annoying as a West Ham fan because it cancelled out 2 other goal of the week contenders. I'll get onto that. But again, I'll get onto that. I'm actually excited to speak about West Ham this week. But yeah, Brighton, this result keeps them in 14th. And keeps them ticking nicely along in Graham Potter's first season. As for Chelsea, this is very concerning. Chelsea are very, very inconsistent at this moment. Ever since it was announced that they are able to spend money in January, the transfer ban's lifted. For some reason, their players just haven't performed. Maybe it's a simple fact that because they're young players, most of them, they worry for their position now. They know it's under threat. Hopefully, they can turn it around. They can turn it around for the young players' sake. As a West Ham fan, I don't care. I'm not too keen on Chelsea. Yeah, it's pretty much any London club that's the case. But yeah, also, and this is a bit of a surprise because away from home they've usually been, solid. They had a hiccup against Everton and Man City, but other than that, they've been winning home games. It's quite concerning, I think, for Chelsea. They are still 4th. They are still relatively comfortable in 4th, 5 points clear of 5th. But at the end of the day, if they keep playing like this, that lead from the chasing pack for 4th will start to go down. Obviously, both sides are not are playing in the cup this week, as for every game. Brighton are at home to Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday. Meanwhile, Chelsea are home not to Nottingham Forest on Sunday. Excuse me. We now move on to the next game, which was Burnley 1, Aston Villa 2. Aston Villa finally getting another win under their belts, with goals from Wesley and Grealish cancelling out Chris Wood's late consolation goal. And now this means Aston Villa climb out of the relegation zone. They climb to 17th. Burnley drop down to 15th. So very close between them now. Only 3 points in them on the same goal difference. Very lot of chances in this game. In total, there were 31 shots, 20 of them for Burnley. But Burnley, 20 shots, 1 on target, which is an incredibly horrific stat. Incredibly bad. Like we quit like a couple of weeks ago against Bournemouth. They only managed one shot there and they scored. This one very similar, one shot on target and they managed to score with that one. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. Burnley. It seems like as long as they get a shot on target, they manage to score. So imagine when they get like 5 shots on target in a game. But again, yeah, 60% possession. That's due to them chasing the game after going 2-0 down. It's quite concerning for Burnley. They've gone on this is their at least their third run of the season where they've lost 3 games in a row. Admittedly, they have always bounced back to a good win the following week. So we'll have to see what happens there with them. But at the end of the day, they're very inconsistent. They get a couple of good results, but then they end up losing consistent games on a back-to-back on a regular basis. As for Aston Villa, this was the performance they needed. They needed this performance after losing convincingly to Watford when they were down to 10 men. And one blemish they will say is their VAR luck isn't getting any better. It's incredible. It's incredible. It should be 3-1. I do not see. I'm looking at the VAR image now. With you know what I'm talking about. Grealish had a goal ruled offside because Wesley is apparently offside by his heel. Yeah. What I will say, if you look very closely, if you look extremely closely. You still cannot tell it is offside. You still can't tell. I mean, VAR at this point is a joke with offsides. Admittedly, I should be praising it after what happened in a game later on. But it's poor. It is poor. I think someone said it best. I don't know. VAR was not here to rule out the finest of margins. And I say finest of margins. Is there even margins? There is. I cannot see the evidence. That is offside. I just can't. I'm pretty sure they're just trying to find any way. They're trying to find literally every body part that can be offside, and they're going to put it offside this season. We've shoulder, toe. Heel. What's next? One strand of hair, nose offside. We're probably going to have it all. But Villa need to desperately bounce on this, and they need to continue in this form. Both sides playing in the cup. Aston Villa take on Fulham on Saturday. Meanwhile, Burnley the 3:00 kickoff. Meanwhile, Burnley host Peterborough on the Saturday in the early window, because it's not just the early kickoff, there's loads of games at that time. We now move on to Newcastle 0, Leicester 3. This was by the books really for Leicester. Goals from Perez, Maddison and Chowdhury, and I will say lovely goals at that, sealing it for Leicester. I'm not sure how much I have to talk about this. Vardy was out again, which is concerning I think for Leicester. But whether they're just resting him or he's actually got a serious injury, all I know is I don't know at this point. But all I do know is if he's out for a long time, that is definitely concerning for my fantasy team and many others across the nation and the world, depending on that. No one out of England watches this. Let's be honest. But yeah, it was a convincing performance. 17 shots, 10 on target. And Chowdhury getting his first goal for the club, and he takes his shot. It was a very good goal for him, and they remain in second place. As for Newcastle, it was another pitiful performance against Leicester. They now lost 8-0 in aggregate to them. 23% possession at home is shocking, and this is another loss again. Ever since they've lost St. Maxim, it's taken all the life out of that team, all the pace that they once had, which was very dangerous to play against. It's poor. It is poor. When you just have Joelinton and Almiron up top, when they combine this season, they have, I want to say 2 goals. I think Joelinton's only scored 1. But even so, even if it's 2, then it's not good at all. And I will say what definitely hampered them was they played for 10 men since the 60th minute because one of their players got injured. Now, okay, I did not watch this game. But I know for a fact they did use all their subs up by the 45th minute. Unless 3 of your players got injured, why are you using all your subs by the 45th minute? I don't care if you're 2-0 down. You don't use them all up. It is a bit. I find it a bit ridiculous from that sense. And even so, one of the subs was in the 3rd minute of added time, and the other subs were brought on at halftime. If you have to use one of your subs at halftime, don't use more. Don't use more. You complained yourself after after the window that after the match, sorry, about this Christmas period and how it exhausts players. Well, you should know then. Steve Bruce is an experienced manager who's been to many of these. He should know better than most managers in the Premier League that injuries can happen. So don't use all your subs by half time just in case they do. Anyway, back to the next games. Leicester play a home game against Wigan in the Cup. Meanwhile, Newcastle travel to Rochdale in the early window for the FA Cup. We now move on to Southampton versus Spurs, as Southampton won 1-0 against Spurs, moving them up to 12th in the table, which you've got to say is very impressive. A goal from Danny Ings, his 13th of the season, making another loss for Spurs away from home, condemning them to still only 2 wins away from home all season. It was a brilliant goal from Danny Ings. It was a brilliant goal. What else do I have to say about this game? Southampton played very well. Ended up having more shots than Spurs in the game, and they've played. The fact that they've gone from losing 9-0 to Leicester to now 12th in the league. I know it's tight. I know it's tight down the relegation zone, and if they lose their next few games, they are back in the thick of it. But they're not losing games at the moment. They're putting out very good performances and beating good sides in Spurs. So yeah, long may it continue, I guess, for Southampton. As for Spurs, this is poor. The changing manager has not helped their away form one bit. I know both their away wins have come. They've come since Mourinho's taken over, but they're still not better. Like, for crying out loud, Mourinho looked at the tactics sheet to get inspiration. Now I know that's probably not what he did, but still, Mourinho will stay golden forever. Treasure that man for a while, because he's a gem of a person and a very funny guy. But at the end of the day, funny does not cut it on the pitch. You're still starting Sergio Aurier. January is now here, so if they don't get a new right back by the end of January, I would be shocked, to be perfectly honest. In fact, I'll say this now: if they do not get a new right back by the end of January, I will spend one review video praising Sergio Aurier. Whether it be a prediction or review show, probably prediction, praising Sergio Aurier and how he could really stop a Southampton defence, how he could really stop a team's attack, and I will try and do that with a straight face. That is the deal. If they don't get a new right back, that is what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, they need to get a new right back. I don't think Spurs fans would want me to make that video. They desperately need to improve, and they need to start scoring goals. Not many goals are going in, and if they are, they're going in tight games. They're going in as a necessity. They're almost matching the other team when it comes to goals, which is not what you want to do at this level if you want to win games. They are still sixth. They are still in the top 6, but very concerning times for Spurs, and I think their Premier League form, I'm not sure is actually going to get any better, because they've got cups coming up. They've got the Champions League and they've got the FA Cup. If I was Spurs, similar place to West Ham, I'd want to prioritise the cups over the Premier League based on the position they are. And speaking of the FA Cups, Spurs travel to Middlesbrough on Sunday. Meanwhile, Saints host Huddersfield Well, of course they're at home. They host them on Saturday at the 3 o'clock kickoff slot. We now move on to Watford 2, Wolves 1. Very good win for Watford as they keep winning games under Nigel Pearson. They're now still 19th, but only 2 points off the relegation zone. And if you said that a couple months ago, Watford fans would have taken your hand off. Incredible work from Nigel Pearson, beating a very good Wolves side, you have to say. All said and done, they are a good Wolves side, and they still played well this week. They were just beaten by a side on good form. As for obviously Delafeu and Decore cancelling out Neto's late goal. VAR working its head again in this game, with Kabasele getting sent off after having his yellow card upgraded to a red. It was the right decision. I will say, Watford, if you're going to continue winning games, maybe stop getting your player sent off, because otherwise you're going to run out of players at the back. Simply. you're going to run out of players. So, and then Wolves this one, as much as losing to a relegation candidate for them is not good, they won't be disheartened by this. They're still in great form at the moment. They're still playing some very good football. And, at the end of the day, this was potentially a chance due to results around them to get higher in the league, but they're not going to be too upset, and they're gonna carry on fighting for that. Even top four spot, I'd say at this point, is definitely not out of their reach. When it comes to the FA Cup, Watford host Tranmere on Saturday. Meanwhile, Wolves host Man United later on that day. We now move on to Man City 2, Everton 1. Goals from Gabriel Jesus, a brace from Jesus, cancelling out Richarlison's goal. I should point out, obviously Phil Foden got a goal disallowed for offside. This one was actually offside. But it's Carlo Ancelotti's first loss as Everton boss. Didn't mean for that to rhyme. Just happened. But Everton's still playing great football. The fact, going to the Etihad and only losing by one is still a very good feat to be doing, despite City dropping off this season. So that Everton are in good hands under Carlo Ancelotti. They're now 11th in the league. They're nowhere near position-wise the relegation zone. If they continue on that form, they will be out of the relegation battle by the end of the month. They're vastly improved under Ancelotti, but at the same time, their Achilles heel was the amount of shots they conceded. This happened against Newcastle. They got let off because it's Newcastle, but against Man City, a side that actually has good goal scorers, they did not. 16 shots, they conceded 7 on target. Cost them really in this game. As for Man City, at the same time, while they probably like it a bit more comfortable, and they would definitely like Claudio Bravo to actually learn how to be a goalie, they will happily take this win due to recent results against the likes of Wolves. They remain 1 point behind Leicester. That's got to be their main focus, let's be honest. Just beating Leicester in the league, which they can easily do. They're only 1 point behind them. I'd be shocked if they ended up beating Liverpool for the title again. Liverpool just have a too big a lead. Even by Liverpool standards, they have too big a lead. So I'd say that'd be very hard to make up for. As for their next game, Man City works their magic. Allegedly, to get Port Vale in the FA Cup. Meanwhile, Everton have got a massive game for them, I believe. Go to Liverpool on Sunday. As for the next game, it was Norwich 1, Crystal Palace 1. Goals from Cantwell and Wickham cancelling each other out to condemning Norwich to another game where they play well but don't get anything out of it. It's an interesting one. For obviously the goal for Connor Wickham was originally given offside, but then given a goal. When Connor Wickham's scoring against you, when Connor Wickham, who's somehow still playing for a Premier League club, is scoring for you, scoring against you, sorry, your defence ain't good. It's not good. At the end of the day, it's cost them. They would be bottom of the league anyway, but they're now 5 points off 19th, which is not a good position to be in. Norwich need to outscore a team. Which it sounds easy, but they keep taking the lead and then dropping it to a draw or even a loss. They start off well. They just don't have the stamina, by the looks of it, to actually maintain their position. Whether they go too defensive too early, but whether they stay attacking for too long, I don't know. They don't have the balance yet. They need to get that balance. As for Crystal Palace, they probably ideally like to get more out of a relegation candidate, but at the end of the day, they're still ninth. They're still doing well. They're not going to take any point away is a decent point. Norwich go to where do they go to? Where do they go to? No, both sides playing the cup next. Norwich go to Preston, while Crystal Palace play aside. You can tell I'm trying to remember. You can tell I'm trying to remember who they play in the next round. They play Derby in the next round on Sunday. We now move on to the game I've been waiting to do. It is West Ham Bournemouth, where we win 4-0. The Moy Sire is back, baby. Yes, get in. 4-0 win. We moves us up to 16, puts Bournemouth in the relegation zone. Goals from brace from Noble, Aller and Anderson with the goals mean that we win 4-0, which is our biggest win in the Premier League since 2007. No, 2007? 2000. What? Somewhere around then. It's for over 10 years. I am incredibly happy. By the way, I've been doing this since like week 10, week 11 of the Premier League. This is genuinely the first review show where we have won. Like, we've won a couple times, but I haven't done review shows for them. So I'm very happy. You could tell the change in manager vastly helped. Not necessarily from a tactic standpoint, because I don't even think that's the main thing we needed to be worried about. Even though the football was very good, which yes, I know David Moyes good football, which is surprising, but. It was more the fact that we wanted the ball. No one just sort of dropped off unless it was part of the tactics rather than just dive in. You know what I mean? But no one took a back seat. They all wanted to. They would go out there and impress the fans, impress the manager. They wanted to get the fans back on us, back on their side, which is what they which they definitely took a big step towards. Spectacular goals from Aller and Anderson. Anderson getting his first goal. He's genuinely equalled his his amount of goals from last year, and we're only on the 1st of December. He only scored one goal last year. That is genuine. That is poor. But let's hope under Moyes he will improve. And this is the thing with David Moyes, and I think people are underestimating the fact that Moyes played bad football last time he was here. I'll admit that. I went to the games. It was poor, but he had a weaker squad then. He's now got the likes of Fornals. Lanzini was injured for most of the time he was at the club last time. He's now back. He's got a solid goalie in Fabianski. He's got pacey fullback in Fredericks. He's got Anderson. He's got an improved Rice. He's got he's not that kind of Rice, and Declan Rice. He's got Sebastian Haller as well up top. With a couple of additions, he can really play the style of football you want. And he said in his interview for West Ham, he wants to play attacking football. He wants to play football that people want to see. If he plays that football every week, that is the kind of football West Ham fans want to see. People trying to go for the ball, and fluid passing, going forward when needed. Obviously, by the end, when it was 4-0, we didn't always go forward. But you got to say that's just. That's the kind of football we want. So if Moyes can bring that every time, obviously I'm aware we're not winning every game. There will be times where we lose. But if he plays that if he goes for that every time, then who's to say Moyes won't be a good appointment? I had faith in Moyes at the start. In my prediction video, you can see I've got more faith now. Definitely, I think he will do a decent job. I'm relatively confident he will keep us up. How far up the table we will go, I don't know. I don't know. As for Bournemouth, it was a pitiful performance. They are drastically hurt by injuries. Only 3 shots out the entire game. Fabianski pretty much had nothing to do. Despite having way more possession, they had 57% possession. West Ham were just more clinical, and they're now in the relegation zone. It's a weird one with Eddie Howe because he's never under the fire line when it comes to being sacked, and I think it'd be a shame if he did get sacked. But how long do Bournemouth fans risk going down? Do they really want to? Do they want to stay in the Prem that much? Because can you really see them going back up once they go down? I think it's the issue I have with Bournemouth and Eddie Howe. So it's concerning times for Bournemouth. Only like 1 win in their last 10. So they need to improve. They need to improve. By the way, Mark Noble, most goals in any top 5 league this decade. So just saying. We now both teams going into the cup. West Ham travel to Gillingham on Sunday. Meanwhile, Bournemouth face Luton on Saturday. We now move on to the last game of the New Year's Day fixtures. Arsenal play Man United. Arsenal won 2-0. It was really good performance from Arsenal. Goals from Pepe and Socrates getting the win. And Mikel Arteta's first win in charge. Arsenal, especially after the Chelsea game, look like a team, which is something they haven't done in ages. They look like a bunch of star power, potentially mixed in there with Aubameyang, Lacazette, but they didn't look like a team. They look like a team now. Mikel Arteta looks like he's got them working. and they actually played some. They played some very good football. It was an even game. I would say both teams had 10 shots. Both teams had 4 shots on target. But Man United seemed to just create more chances. Arsenal, sorry, seemed to create more chances. As for Man United, this is another long list of games where they've just looked at it. Man United very inconsistent, especially away from home. Where they still haven't been good this season, and they are fifth at the moment. Arsenal, by the way, move up into 10th. But Man United need to improve against sides like Arsenal. I know the whole joke is, oh well, we didn't play well because they're a mid-table side. Yeah, but if they're not in good form, you should be beating them. That's the point. And Man United, at the end of the day, Solskjaer is still at the job. How long he'll be there, I don't know. At the end of the day, it's a bit like Pellegrini staying at West Ham with Solskjaer. It's not the exact same thing because they fight for a different thing as we did. But when it came to Man United, they had bad results against the likes of they've had bad results against the likes of Watford and teams around that area. But they've also had just blemishes. Blemishes, is that a word? Bright spots we're going to go with the wins against Man City, the comfortable win against Newcastle. They've had the moments, they just haven't had consistent form, which is what Man United really need. Because there's an opportunity with Chelsea playing badly, or just very inconsistent, to get into that 4th spot. They've got a chance, potentially. They do genuinely have a chance. Whether Solskjaer can do it, I don't know. That is the real question. Well, anyway, both sides playing the cup. Arsenal host Leeds on Monday, while Man United travel to Wolves. We now move on to yesterday's game as Liverpool won 2-0 against Sheffield United. Goals from Salah and Mane sealing it. It's another edition of Liverpool win comfortably. Liverpool remain first. I will say it was a poor first goal to concede from Sheffield United's standpoint with not Sam Bulldog, that's an ex-West Ham player, from what's his name? Just Bulldog. I can't remember his first name. George, I think it is. I think it's George Bulldog. But yeah, Chris Wilder probably would have killed him at halftime, even if he won't admit it. But yeah, Sheffield United again. Then similar to the City one, they're not going to take harm from this performance. Despite at the end of the day, Liverpool were going to comfortably beat them, probably, and that's what they've done. They've carried on. They're now 13 points clear at the top of the table with a game in hand, and it's against us, so they're probably going to win it. And yeah, Liverpool carry on to their probably title-winning run this season. Let's be honest. Well, a couple of notes I will say on Sheffield United. They are apparently going to sign Jack Rodwell on a short-term contract. So, in other words, you're potentially going to have a midfield, and this is also my point. They're playing Fylde in the a conference side who's in the relegation zone on Sunday in the FA Cup. They're potentially making 11 changes. They're going to make 11 changes apparently. Now, I don't think there's any issue really with that. They should still win if their squad's depth enough. But they're potentially going to have a midfield duo of Jack Rodwell and Ravel Morrison at some points for cup games. How easy is that going to be to get past? Like, honestly, unless Chris Wilder can work his magic, that's going to be bad. But yeah, Liverpool also play on Sunday, but it's a big game against Everton. Now, while I'm obviously not doing predictions for this one, for the FA Cup, I will just mention something with this game. Liverpool, in theory, probably won't go for they're definitely not going to go for their strongest side because it's a FA Cup they haven't been cared about. I reckon they're going to put out a stronger side than they would have if it was anyone else other than Everton. Because I believe they do value that run they have over Everton. I do. I think some people said they won't care if they lose. It's not like the Manchester derby where when the United fans live in London, so neither can brag about to the other. They do actually live in close quarters, but the fans do live in close quarters with each other. They will care if Everton beat them, especially at Anfield as well, you got to say. So that's just my thoughts on that one. I'm not going to predict the game because it is actually quite hard to predict, but that's just my thoughts on that game. So that concludes this week's matches. We now have a look at my fantasy team, where it's another strong week for me. Only 2 points down on last week. Big points from Robertson. Mane again helped me as vice captain. Abraham, Grealish got some big points. Sanucci and Schmeichel all getting decent amount of points. Even Dunk tripping in with 4 points for the assist for the Hamba Cash's goal. And I should point out, in my own fantasy league, I'm 100 points clear of anyone in second place. So anyone in that league watching this video, ha 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 ha. That concludes this week's review video. What a way to end it. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you like, share, and subscribe. Turn on the notifications. And obviously, with the cup being on this week, there will be no prediction video for this weekend's game or review video. So I will see you next Thursday for the predictions for week 22.